Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. That's recording, no problem. Good. Welcome to you all. Our lecture hall is empty today because it's snowing heavily outside, so we've canceled our in-person classes, but nice we continue our online classes, and all of our local students can watch online. For local students, I'll remind you, please be sure that you sign up for program announcements so that you are informed by email when we cancel a class. Go to our website to sign up for announcements. We'll begin today with recitation chapter 7, of course, beginning with verse 21. As always, read the translation as I'm chanting and then repeat after me. There we go. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha, yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha, shraddhayarchitam icchati, shraddhayarchitam icchati, tasya tasyachalam shraddham, tasya tasyachalam shraddham, tameva vidadhamyaham, Tameva viradhamyaham, sataya shraddhaya yuktas, sataya shraddhaya yuktas, tasyaradhanamihate, tasyaradhanamihate, labhate chatata kaman, labhate chatata kaman, mayaiva vihitan hitan, Mayaiva vihitan hitan, antavattu palam tesham, antavattu palam tesham, tadbhavatyalpa medhasam, tadbhavatyalpa medhasam, devan devayajo yati, devan devayajo yati, madbhakti Yati mamapi, madbhakta yati mamapi, avyaktam vyaktamapannam, avyaktam vyaktamapannam, manyante mama buddhayaha, manyante mama buddhayaha, param bhavamajananto, param bhavamajananto, mamavyayamanutamam, mamavyayamanutamam, naham prakasha sarvasya, naham prakasha sarvasya, yoga maya samavrataha, yoga maya samavrataha, mudho yam nabhijanati, mudho yam nabhijanati, loko mamajam avyayam, loko mamajam avyayam, vedaham samatitani, vedaham samatitani, vartamanani charjuna, Vartamanani charjuna, bhavishyani cha bhutani, bhavishyani cha bhutani, mam tu veda na kaschana, mam tu veda na kaschana. Very good. Okay. Picking up the thread in our last class. The end of the last class was quite, might have been surprising for some to see Sri Krishna encouraging worship of any form of God, any deity, and we could extend that to other religions as well, praying to Jesus, to Allah, to any form of God. According to Sri Krishna, all of that is acceptable. All of that is not acceptable. Good. Although he says praying to me, he says is easier in his opinion. But he says praying to any form of God, any deity is good as long as those prayers are sincere. He uses the word shraddha here in the last verse we saw. If you pray with shraddha, and often translated just as faith, but it's a word rich with meaning, and here better to understand shraddha as to pray with commitment, with sincerity, truly connecting your heart in that prayer. So that's where we left off in our last class. There was one question that came. The question is, you mentioned that Ishvara is beyond the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. What does it mean to be beyond the three gunas? And beyond not in a physical sense, beyond in a philosophical sense. Remember the metaphor we used of the dreamer and dream. The dreamer in the metaphor represents Ishvara, and the dream and the dream world represents all of us. And for everyone and everything in the dreamer is truly beyond. And beyond the three gunas. Remember, the three gunas is the part of the ancient worldview for the material world. So to be beyond the three gunas is to be beyond the material world, and for the dream world and dream people, the dreamer laying on his or her bed is truly beyond. Beyond not in a physical sense, but in a philosophical sense. So with that, we can continue our class today. Most of the coming verses, we're coming towards the end of the class, and a lot of these verses are very simple and straightforward in meaning, and we may actually reach the end of the class. I'm not sure, but I think we may be able to finish the chapter, today. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's continue. Antavatupalam tesham, antavatupalam tesham, tadbhavatyalpamedhasam, tadbhavatyalpamedhasam, devan devayajo yanti, devan devayajo yanti, madbhakta yanti mamapi, madbhakta yanti mamapi. So, as we summarized, Sri Krishna says you can pray to any deity you choose, but antavat tu, that tu is but. But antavat palam, the fruits of your worship will be antavat, limited. In the second line, tad bhavati, the fruits, the results of your worship will be limited if, for whom, tesham, and in the second line, alpa medhasam. Tesham, for those, alpa medhasam, who have limited understanding, those whose understanding of the purpose of life is limited, for them, the results of their prayers will be limited. And in what sense? If they, alpa medhasam, for those who don't really understand the purpose of life, those are the people who are praying, "Oh God, please help my business be more successful. Oh God, please help me get this promotion. Please, oh God, please help me get this or that." People praying for worldly goals. That's what Sri Krishna means when he refers to those who are alpa medhas, those of limited understanding, those who fail to appreciate the real purpose of life. And what's what's possible through prayer. So he says, for them, the results are limited, and he goes on to explain, Devan Deva Yajo Yati. Deva Yajaha. Deva Yajaha, those who worship Devan, the gods, those who worship the gods, Yanti, they reach the gods. Those who worship the gods reach the gods. Here we have to put it in context. You remember in our previous class, we talked about the Hindu convention of worshiping Lord Ganesha if you have obstacles that need to be overcome, worshiping Goddess Saraswati if you need more intelligence to pass some kind of examination, and worshiping Goddess Lakshmi if you need more wealth. That's what Sri Krishna means here when he refers to Deva Yajaha, those who worship particular gods, particular deities. And what do they get? Yanti Devan. They reach those deities, meaning they are blessed by those deities. Praying to Ganesha can remove obstacles. Praying to Saraswati can help you pass an examination. Praying to Lakshmi can result in more wealth for you. But then what exactly is the problem? Shri Krishna says, Madbhaktaha yanti mam api. He says, if you worship the deities for worldly goals, you can fulfill those goals. But madbhaktaha, those who worship me, mad here is the pronoun, those who worship me, yanti mam api, they reach me. If you pray for worldly goals, you can fulfill those worldly goals. But if you pray to reach Ishvara, the God of the cosmos, your prayers can lead you to that loftiest of goal, to enlightenment, as we'll see in a future verse. Here, Sri Krishna is pointing out, I think, a very interesting observation, and that is, if you're going to pray to the God of the cosmos, should you pray for something small? Like merely removing, small meaning worldly goals, removing obstacles, getting more money. So Sri Krishna criticizes that approach. He says, I'll paraphrase, if you're going to pray to the God of the cosmos, pray for something big. I'm laughing because I remember a favorite story. I think in a prior class, I told you about Manda Baba. Manda Baba was the holy man who was not very bright. Here's another story about Manda Baba. Manda Baba Manda Baba supported himself by begging, and he developed a strategy for begging, and that is everyone who came down, he was in a village, everyone who came down the road, he would ask them for 1 paisa, 1 penny. And 1 penny is so little, no one would refuse him, and he would ask many people for 1 paisa, and he would get enough money to support himself. So whoever came down the road, he would ask for 1 paisa. Then one day, the local Raja, the local king, came to his village, riding on an elephant with a whole retinue, and Manda Baba saw the king coming to the village. Manda Baba ran up to the king, and he said, "O king, hey Raja, kripaya mujhe ek paisa dijiye." Please give me 1 penny, he asked. Now consider the fact that Manda Baba could have asked the king for immense wealth. This king was known for his generosity. The king, excuse me, the king was ready to bless Manda Baba with great wealth. But what did Manda Baba ask for? 1 paisa, 1 penny. What did the king give Manda Baba? 1 paisa, 1 penny. Manda Baba's mistake was to fail to recognize the true nature of the one he was begging from. He didn't recognize that it was the wealthy and generous king he was making his request of. In the same way, when you pray, when anyone prays, if you're praying to the God of the universe, and to pray to the God of universe for something small, in Sri Krishna's view, is missing the mark. So if you are going to pray to the God of the universe, and if you understand that praying for material things is praying for something quite small, what should you pray for? Well, we're going to see that in the coming verses. What you should pray for is, if you're praying to the God of the cosmos, one of the loftiest forms of prayer is, "O God, hey Ishvara, who are you? O Ishvara, bless me with wisdom so I can know who you truly are. O Ishvara, please lead me on towards enlightenment." This would be an example of a higher form of prayer, a prayer that's not limited to worldly goals, but a prayer that transcends those worldly goals, and that's what Sri Krishna is going to talk about going forward. Avyaktam vyaktamapannam, avyaktam vyaktamapannam, manyante mama buddhayaha, manyante mama buddhayaha, param bhavamajananto, param bhavamajananto, mamavyayamanutamam, mamavyayamanutamam. Previous verse, Sri Krishna talked about those who were alpamedhas, those who had limited understanding. Here in the second line, he's now talking about abuddhayaha. Abuddhayaha are those who lack discernment, those who lack intelligence. So, abuddhayaha in the second line. Those less intelligent ones, what do? Manyante, they consider mam, me, Sri Krishna says, they consider me avyaktam vyaktam apannam. They consider me to be one who was first avyaktam, unmanifest, and then vyaktam apannam, and then apannam gaining vyaktim, manifestation. It's kind of fancy philosophical words, but simply put, they consider me to be first unborn, and then I got born, just like any other person. So Sri Krishna says that the unintelligent ones see me as being unborn and then becoming born. And we'll put this in the context of Sri Krishna. The unintelligent ones still know Sri Krishna as an avatara, as an incarnation of God. And he says, even to know Sri Krishna, even to know me, Sri Krishna speaks, even to know me as an incarnation of Vishnu is a limited way of understanding me, Sri Krishna says. And he explains that in the second half. He says, Param janam ajanantaha. Ajanantaha. They do not know. You have to pick up mama from the beginning of the last line. They do not know mama param bhavam. They do not know mama, my, param, supreme, bhavam, existence. They don't know my true nature. They don't know my supreme existence as being avyayam, eternal, unchanging, and anuttamam, transcendent. That which cannot be excelled is anuttamam. They don't know. So Sri Krishna, I'll paraphrase this verse. Sri Krishna says that those who know me as an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, who was first unborn and then got born in the form of Sri Krishna as that avatara. Sri Krishna actually criticizes them. He calls them abuddhayaha, unintelligent ones. Why? Because ajanantaha, they don't know Sri Krishna's true nature, his supreme being, as it were. Perhaps to understand this, we can return to a metaphor we've used before. Remember, several times we've used the metaphor of the lucid dream. A lucid dream is to be dreaming and to know you're dreaming. In a lucid dream, you are one of the characters in your own dream. You project yourself into your own dream. Now, here's the setup. You are dreaming. Suppose you're dreaming of attending this class. You're sitting with all your fellow students attending this class, and imagine this is your lucid dream. You're sitting, attending this class, and in the middle of the class, you stand up and announce to us all that you are the creator of this entire world, this dream world. Remember the lucid dream metaphor? When you dream, you create a world. In a lucid dream, you create a dream world and you project yourself into that dream world and you know you're dreaming. So imagine, you stand up in the middle of this dream and you announce to all your fellow students in this lecture hall that you are we'll get the metaphor right. You are a projection of the dreamer who created this dream world. So the truth of you, your true nature, is you're laying on your bed someplace nearby here in New Jersey. So your true nature is you're laying on your bed, but when you stand up in this lucid dream, you can announce to us all, you reveal to us all, that you are a projection of the dreamer who created all this. Now, if you did, we'd all be pretty amazed to know that you indeed are a projection of the dreamer, the creator of this dream world. But what would we know about your true nature laying down in your bed sound asleep? We would have no knowledge of your true nature at all. We would only know you as a projection into this dream world. That's the point Sri Krishna is making here. That to know Sri Krishna merely as an avatara is to fail to understand his true nature as Ishvara, the creator, sustainer, and destroyer of the cosmos. So he says that they ajanantaha, they don't understand mama param bhavam, my supreme nature, my transcendent nature. The dreamer is transcendent compared to the dream world. So they fail to know my higher nature, my transcendent nature. Why? Because their understanding is limited to the world we perceive. In the lucid dream, all the dream characters only perceive the dream world and the projection of the dreamer into the dream world. None of those dream characters can reach, as it were, the transcendent dreamer laying in the bed. Sri Krishna continues. Naham prakasha sarvasya, Naham prakasha sarvasya, Yoga maya samavritaha, Yoga maya samavritaha, Mudho yam nabhijanati, Mudho yam nabhijanati, Loko mamajam avyayam, Loko mamajam avyayam. Shri Krishna says, continuing on the same idea, he says, Aham, I, na prakashaha, I am not visible, I am not evident, sarvasya, for everyone. I am not evident for everyone. Why? Yoga maya samavritaha. He says, because I am samavritaha, covered by yoga maya. Covered by, yeah, correct. Covered by, yoga maya is a technical term used in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures to refer to the veiling capacity of ignorance. The yoga maya, this could be a long discussion. I'd rather stay with this whole sequence of verses. Yoga maya, yoga here means power. The power of Maya. And the power of Maya is the power that prevents us from seeing the reality and failing to see reality, we imagine things. Let's put this in a proper Vedantic capacity. Due to Yoga Maya, due to the capacity of ignorance to cover our true natures, we fail to see the divinity within us due to Yoga Maya. This power of Maya covers, as it were, the true divine nature, which is your nature, which is the nature of every being. And having failed to recognize your own true nature due to Yoga Maya, you then falsely believe that you can find contentment and peace out there in the world through worldly pursuits. This is the fundamental problem that causes suffering. Failing to recognize your true divine nature due to Yoga Maya, the covering capacity of ignorance, the power of Maya to delude us, preventing us from recognizing the divinity within, and then leading us to wrongly conclude that the answer to the problem of suffering lies out there in the world through working harder, doing more, getting more stuff, accumulating more things, getting more money, getting more power, getting more privileges. This is all due to Yoga Maya, the power of Maya, the power of ignorance to delude us all. For that reason, Sri Krishna says, Aham na prakashaha, I am not evident, I am not visible for everyone. And he continues, Mudaha ayam, you have to go down to the last line, lokaha. Ayam lokaha, this world, the world of people, is muda, is deluded. The world of people is deluded. And na abhijanati, the world of people doesn't recognize, na abhijanati, does not recognize mam, me, Sri Krishna says. The deluded world does not recognize me as being ajam and avyayam. Ajam, unborn. Avyayam, imperishable, eternal. Remember, Sri Krishna as an avatara has a birth. In fact, we celebrated even today, Krishna Janmashtami, the birthday of Sri Krishna. But the avatara has a birth, not Ishvara, not the God of the cosmos, because of which everything exists. And Sri Krishna here is speaking as Ishvara, as the God of the cosmos, and he says that the world, people in the world, I'll paraphrase the whole verse, people in the world don't recognize the true nature of God because of yoga maya, because of this delusion, this delusion that causes us to, that prevents us from recognizing the true divinity within the delusion, which causes us then to run around making tremendous effort to find peace and contentment through worldly activities, looking for peace and contentment in all the wrong places. The ultimate source of peace and contentment is within, but due to yoga maya, due to this power of delusion, we are driven to find peace and contentment in all activities and things and people outside, in all the places where contentment is not. This is the power of yoga maya. And all of this relates to a fundamental mistake we make. We look out into the world for contentment and peace, and we then are attracted to continue looking out into the world for contentment and peace. And as long as we are extrovert, looking for contentment and peace outside, we will not turn our attention within to discover the true source of peace and contentment. I can't see it. Please come in, and my assistant is telling me there's a bug on me. I can't see it, so I've asked her to come and remove it. Thank you. Okay, leading us to the next verse. Same topic continues. In fact, Sri Krishna talks about a certain irony here. Vedaham samatitani, Vedaham samatitani, Vartamanani charjuna, Vartamanani charjuna, Bhavishyani cha bhutani, Bhavishyanti cha bhutani, Mam tu vedana kaschana, Mam tu vedana kaschana. Irony, you'll see. Sri Krishna says, Aham, I, Veda, I know, samatitani. I know everything that existed in the past. I know the past. Vartamanani cha, Arjuna. O Arjuna, Vartamanani cha. Also, I know the present. I know the past. I know the present. Bhavishyani cha bhutani. And I know the future. I know bhutani, all that will exist, bhavishyani, in the future. I know the past, present, and future. But, mam, tu is the word but, but, mam, me, na kaschana veda. No one knows me. And here's the irony. Sri Krishna says, I know everything in the past, in the present, and future. Ironically, no one knows me. No one knows me in reality. So Sri Krishna, remember the context. He's talking to Arjuna on the battlefield, where Sri Krishna is known by Arjuna as being an avatara. And Sri Krishna says that people know me as an avatara. No one knows me in reality. No one knows Sri Krishna as Ishvara. And in a broader sense, it means no one means few. Few people know the truth of who Ishvara actually is. Ishvara is not some deity in some heavenly realm. Okay. Now, Ichcha dvesha samuttena, ichcha dvesha samuttena, dvandva mohena bharata, dvandva mohena bharata, sarva bhutani sammoham, sarva bhutani sammoham, sarge yanti parantapa, sarge yanti parantapa. Excuse me. Start in the third line. Where Sri Krishna says, Sarva Bhutani. You have to combine the third and fourth lines. Sarva Bhutani, all creatures, yanti sammoham. All creatures yanti, go to, become sammoham, become deluded. All beings become deluded. All beings sarge in the world. All beings are subject to delusion, parantapa, almighty Arjuna, scorcher of foes, literally, parantapa. O Arjuna, all beings in the world are subject to delusion, sammoham. In the prior verse, we had 2 verses back, we had that term yoga maya. All beings are subject to delusion because we're all born ignorant. No one is born enlightened. No ordinary person is born enlightened. No one is born knowing who Ishvara truly is. No normal person is born knowing one's true nature as Satchidananda Atma. We are all born ignorant. We are all born into a state of delusion. And most significantly, as we talked about 2 verses back, that delusion, that ignorance prevents us from recognizing the divinity within, prevents us from recognizing the true source of contentment and peace within, and that's where we get in trouble. Failing to recognize the true source of contentment and peace within, we look for that contentment and peace outside in the world in all the wrong places, which is what Sri Krishna describes in the first part of this verse. He says, Ichcha dvesha samuttena. It is due to this failure to recognize your own true nature, the failure to recognize the true source of inner contentment and peace, is Ichcha dvesha samuttena. It arises from Ichcha, desire, and dvesha, literally hate. And perhaps the 2 words side by side we should probably take as raga and dvesha, the desire to get what you want, the desire to run away from what you don't want, concluding that your well-being depends on what you get, and your well-being depends on avoiding certain things. And Sri Krishna says, Bharata, in the second line, O Arjuna, all of this is due to dvandva mohena, due to the moha, the delusion of dvandva. Dvandva is this ichcha and dvesha, raga and dvesha. This pair, dvandva. This pair is raga and dvesha. Raga, I want it. Dvesha, I want to get away from it. This worldly thinking, focusing our attention on what we want to get, focusing our attention on what we don't want to, on what we want to avoid, that extrovert focus prevents us from discovering the true source of peace and contentment within the inner divinity. We've discussed all this in quite some detail, so I'm going a little bit more quickly through these verses. They're quite simple. Then, the counterpart. So the prior verse are those who are deluded by and caught up in this raga and dvesha. What about the others who aren't caught up in this raga and dvesha? Yesham tvantagatam papam, yesham tvantagatam papam, jananam punya karmanam, jananam punya karmanam, te dvandva moha nirmukta, te dvandva moha nirmukta, bhajante mam dridavrataha, bhajante mam dridavrataha. Yesham tu, that word tu is hidden. Tu antagatam, tu, but. Yesham, for those. Yesham, second line, jananam, for those people. And here too is distinguishing these people from the other people. Who are the other people? The other ones are those who are completely deluded and caught up in this raga and dvesha, and thereby prevented from looking within to discover their inner divinity. Two, contrasted with those are yesham, yesham jananam, those people whom are punya karmanam, those people who do pious deeds, those people who live a dharmic life, those people who are not selfishly focused on fulfilling their individual desires through worldly pursuits. Those people, for such people, their papam, their sins are antagatam, removed. To put this in a more Vedantic context, punya karmanam, for those people engaged in good karmas, and we'll interpret it, those people who practice karma yoga, those people who live in the world not for the sake of worldly gain, not for the sake of worldly pleasure, those people who live in the world having as their goal spiritual growth. That's implied by this word punya karmanam, those people who do pious deeds, literally. Sri Krishna uses that expression to refer to those who practice karma yoga. Those who practice karma yoga means they're engaged in all their worldly activities, but not having worldly goals as their agenda. Instead, their agenda is spiritual growth. Their intent is spiritual growth. And for such people, antagatam papam, their sins are removed, meaning the practice of karma yoga purifies their minds and hearts, and purify in a particular way. There's a technical understanding of karma yoga. When we say karma yoga purifies your mind and heart, that's not meant in some abstract general way, but it specifically means you are purified of raga and dvesha. You overcome the compulsion to get what you want and run away from what you don't want. You overcome those compulsions through the practice of karma yoga. And we've discussed karma yoga at great length, so we won't go further into that. So for those people who practice karma yoga, those people who overcome raga dvesha, this is a paraphrase of the first half. For those people who practice karma yoga and overcome raga dvesha, for them, second half, they are dvandva moha nirmuktaha. They are nirmukta, they are freed from what? Moha, the confusion, the delusion of dvandva, and there are different ways to interpret it. Dvandva means pair, and in this context we could take pair as raga dvesha. They are freed from the delusion of raga dvesha, freed from the compulsion of raga and dvesha. We've spent a long time talking about how this compulsivity molds our lives in a very unfortunate way. If you're always compelled to chase after what you want, if you're always compelled to run away from things that look undesirable, this compulsivity corrupts our lives in a sense that it causes us to remain focused on these external things, and it prevents us from gaining a deeper dimension of life, from appreciating a deeper dimension of life in which we turn our attention within, away from the goodies in the world, away from the threatening things in the world. We turn our attention within for the sake of finding that inner divinity. And what about such people? Bhajante mam. Sri Krishna says, they worship me. Bhajante, they worship mam, me. How? Dhrida vrataha, literally having strong vows, but we're not really speaking, not talking about vows. Their commitment, having a strong commitment, they worship me. How do they worship me? Sri Krishna being present within. Remember we had in chapter 6, when we discussed meditation at great length, we saw so many verses in which Sri Krishna said that you should meditate on me within. And that's what he's referring to here. Those people, to paraphrase now the second half, those people who break free from the compulsion of raga dvesha, the compulsion to chase after what looks good in the world, the compulsion to run away from that which looks undesirable in the world, those who break free from that compulsion can turn their attention within, bhajante mam, and discover Sri Krishna's presence within, and be focused on it. Dhrida vrataha. They become intent on discovering Sri Krishna's divine presence within. And then Sri Krishna concludes this line of thought in the next verse. He says, Jara marana mokshaya, Jara marana mokshaya, mama shritya yatantiye, mama shritya yatantiye, te brahma tadvidu kritsnam, te brahma tadvidu kritsnam, adhyatmam karma chakilam, adhyatmam karma chakilam. Start in the second line. Yea, those who yatanti, those who go mam ashritya, mam ashritya yanti, those who mam ashritya, those who resort to me. And remember their context now. Sri Krishna is referring to me, the one who resides within you, as your true divine nature. That's the whole context of the Bhagavad Gita. If we take a verse like this out of context, those who resort to me, so then out of context, someone might think, oh, those who pray only to Lord Krishna, not to Lord Shiva, not to Lord Rama, not to Goddess Devi, but only to Sri Krishna, that's taking this verse completely out of context. In the context of the entire Bhagavad Gita, especially with reference to what we said about chapter 6, when Sri Krishna again and again described his presence within you as the inner divinity, with that in mind, we have to interpret this verse. Mam ashritya ye. Those who resort to me, not Sri Krishna the Avatara, not Sri Krishna who stands on an altar someplace, but rather Sri Krishna who dwells within you as the inner divinity. Those resort to me and yatanti, they strive. They strive for what? First line. They strive jara, marana, mokshaya. They strive for moksha, freedom from jara, old age, and marana, death. They strive for freedom from old age and death. Positively speaking, they strive for immortality. What does it mean to strive for immortality? You understand this. The body is going to die. You can't find any kind of immortality for the mind. So to strive for immortality means to turn your attention within and strive to find that inner divinity, the truth of your nature, Satchidananda Atma, which truly is immortal. Immortal because your body got born. Satchidananda Atma didn't get born. Always existent. Your true nature was always existent. Your body got born. So, striving for immortality means turning your attention within to discover that immortal essence of who you are. Our Vedantic terminology calls it Satchidananda Atma, your true self, which is unborn, uncreated, unchanging, unlimited consciousness. Consciousness which is unborn, uncreated, unlimited, and consciousness which is utterly unaffected by the problems of your body, by the problems of your mind, by problems all around you. That is your true nature. And here Sri Krishna talks about those who mam ashritya. They turn their attention within, seeking me, the inner divinity. Yatanti, they are striving to overcome birth and death, striving for immortality, striving to discover one's true nature as Satchidananda Atma. What about them? In the third line, te, they, viduhu, they understand tat brahma. They understand tat, that, as Brahma, Brahman, the reality of all. This verse is like a Mahavakya. Sri Krishna says that by turning your attention within, by seeking Sri Krishna's presence within you as that inner divinity, to discover Sri Krishna's presence within you is to know Brahman. That's literally what it says. Te viduhu, they know, tat brahma, they know that inner divinity as Brahman, as the reality because of which the universe exists. That's exactly what the Mahavakya says. Tat tvam asi, tvam, your true nature, the essence of who you are, tat asi, you are that reality because of which the universe exists. This Mahavakya erases the difference between the individual being and the universal reality. There is no individual being at all. The individual is, in fact, an expression of that universal reality, non-separate from that universal reality. Sri Krishna concludes, in fact, this verse concludes the chapter, and then there's one more verse dangling. We'll see it in just a minute. But Sri Krishna concludes this chapter in this just with big, big words, big statements. Those who turn their attention within to discover their true nature, to discover Sri Krishna's presence within them as their true nature, te brahma tad viduhu. They discover Brahman. By going within, you discover Brahman. Looking out there you will never discover Brahman. Brahman being the truth of the universe. By looking out into the heavens, you will never come to discover Brahman. Brahman, the reality because of which everything exists, can only be discovered by looking within. Why? You are that Brahman. That's what the Mahavakya Tattvamasi means. And Sri Krishna here is speaking to us a Mahavakya. So by looking within, by discovering Sri Krishna's divine presence within you, such people discover Brahman. They come to know Brahman, Kritsnam, completely, Adhyatmam, and their true nature. They know Brahman and they know Adhyatmam. Brahman, the reality because of which everything exists. Adhyatmam, the reality because of which you exist. And of course, the reality because of which everything exists and the reality because of which you exist cannot possibly be two different realities. There can only be one reality because of which you exist, because of which I exist, because of which everything exists. So looking within, discovering Sri Krishna's divine presence within, they come to know Brahman, the reality because of which everything exists. They come to know Adhyatmam, the reality because of which they exist, you exist, and Karma, Akhilam, and they come to understand karma completely. Karma here in this context means the way the universe unfolds. They come to understand reality. And they become enlightened. That's simply what it means. The last half of this verse simply means they become enlightened. To paraphrase the entire verse, those who resort to me, Sri Krishna says, those who seek my divine nature within as their true nature, and they strive for immortality, they strive to discover the true self which is immortal, they become enlightened. They become enlightened is a simple meaning of the second half of this verse. And with this verse, chapter 7 really comes to a conclusion, but there's one more verse dangling, as it were, at the end of the chapter. Let's see that last verse. Sadi bhutadi daivam mam, sadi bhutadi daivam mam, sadi yajñam chaye viduhu, sadi yajñam chaye viduhu, prayana kale pichamam, prayana kale pichamam, te vidur yukta chetasaha, te vidur yukta chetasaha. Start in the third line. Prayana kale apicha, apicha, and further, prayana kale. Prayana is going on a journey, a long journey, your last journey. Prayana kale means at the time of your last journey, at the time of death. And this is his last verse of the chapter. And at the time of death, te viduhu, those who know, referring to the prior verse, those who are enlightened, those enlightened ones, te viduhu, those who know, those who are yukta chetasaha, those whose minds are yukta, engaged in a form of meditation that he's going to describe in the next chapter. This verse, as you'll see, is introducing chapter 8. Let's just see the verse here. Prayana kale apicha, and at the end of life, te viduhu, those who know, And those who know what? In the end of the third line, Mam, Sri Krishna says, those who know me at the end of their life, those who know me, yukta chetasaha, with their minds firmly established. We'll leave meditation aside. We'll talk about the meditation in the next chapter. Those who know me at the end of their lives, with their minds firmly established in that knowledge. What about them? In the second line, ye viduhu, they are those who know, again in the first line, Mam, those who know Mam, those who know me, sa adhibhuta, adhidhaiva, and sa adhiyagnyam. Three technical terms. Sa adhibhuta, in association with the world. Those who know viduhu mam, those who know me, sa adhibhuta, associated with the world. Those who know me, sa adhidaivam, associated with the gods, with the deities, and those who know me, sa adhiyagnyam, in association with rituals. What is he talking about? Well, these three topics, knowing Sri Krishna with regard to the world, with regard to deities, with regard to rituals, knowing Sri Krishna as such at the end of life, this is the topic of the next chapter. This verse 30, introduces the next chapter. So instead of trying to understand what it means to know Sri Krishna associated with the world, associated with deities, associated with rituals, and to know Sri Krishna at the end of one's life, that's the subject matter of the next chapter. So we'll wait till the next chapter to discuss it. And what we're going to see in chapter 8 is a very deep inquiry into death. What happens when you die, what happens after you die, and how meditation can be used to prepare for death. All of these are topics that come in chapter 8, and we'll see that starting with the next chapter, chapter 8. As we're concluding this chapter now, what we've been doing at the end of each chapter is reviewing the chapter, getting an overview of the chapter by reciting these English verses which follow the meter of the original Sanskrit, allowing us to chant the English verses. The English verses are also an abbreviated version. So we'll conclude today's class by chanting this abbreviated English version of chapter 7, so we can get the overview of chapter 7. Remember, chapter 7 was Jnana Vijnana Yoga, the title of the chapter, dealing with Jnana and Vijnana, knowledge of Ishvara. So let's see the English. Maybe first verse you can listen and repeat so that you remember the style of chanting, and then the remaining verses we can chant together. So listen and repeat, please. The Blessed Lord said, the Blessed Lord said, O Arjuna, please listen now. O Arjuna, please listen now. So you can know me totally. So you can know me totally. When you completely understand, when you completely understand, nothing here will remain unknown. Nothing here will remain unknown. You can chant along with me now. Among the thousands in the world, just a few for perfection strive. Even then, among those who try, few know me in reality. All beings, everything that is, from my own nature did evolve. I am the source and utmost end of the entire universe. There exists nothing here indeed that transcends me, O Arjuna. The universe is strung on me like pearls upon a single thread. I am the light of sun and moon, and the sweet fragrance of the earth. I am the brilliant glow of fire, and in all creatures I am life. For all beings I am the seed, and the true wisdom of the wise. I am the glory of the great, and the might of the powerful. From my nature all this evolved, from sattva, rajas, and tamas. The world deluded by Maya fails to know me beyond these three. Threefold is my divine Maya. It's difficult to comprehend. Only those who resort to me can hope to ever cross beyond. Four kinds of people worship me. Among those who do noble works, the desperate, those wanting wealth, seekers of knowledge, and the wise. All the four are commendable, yet the wise they appear to be my very self indeed. In me the highest goal they dwell. But those whose wisdom has been robbed, due to their passionate desires, they worship other gods instead, driven by their own selfishness. Worshipping to fulfill desires, limited are the fruits obtained. Praying to gods, the gods are gained. But those who seek me come to me. To all I am not visible, hidden by Maya's veiling power. The world deluded knows me not as unborn and immutable. But those, the righteous, free from sin, who worship me wholeheartedly, they know the full reality of karma, Brahman, and the self. And that is our overview of Chapter 7. When we meet next week, we'll continue with Chapter 8. We'll end with our brief prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.